Pig Trail Nation's Mike Irwin with us on a Monday morning. Good morning, Mike. What's on your mind?
Oh, man, got to deal with Ask Mike later today. Lots of basketball questions, baseball questions, softball questions. No football questions this week. Guess they've been on spring break. But, somebody asked on this Ask Mike thing, which is worse, not going to the tournament at all last year or getting to maybe within a few seconds of a chance to go to the Final Four and having the door shut in your face, which is worse. And obviously, initially, it's more painful to come that close and not make it. Now, what happens is a day or two later, 3 days later, people start to put this into perspective, and they realize where this program was a year ago at this time when you didn't even know who your head coach was going to be to, you went to the Sweet 16, almost made it to the Elite Eight. You got a lot of these guys probably coming back. You got the third-ranked recruiting class right now, so things are looking a lot better than they did a year ago.
That was a question I guess I was going to ask Mike was who's a guy 100% that is it Carter Knox? Is it DJ Wagner that you're like they have to be a Razorback next year?
Well, I think those three would help because it would then give you the experience you needed that you didn't have this year of guys coming back who have tournament experience. And then you got to look at Brazil. No, I don't think he said anything, so he's still eligible to come back. I think everybody figures Boogie Fland is gone. I mean, he's probably going to declare for the draft, and then the only way he comes back is if guess he got a bad report. Not sure about Theo again. He'll probably declare, and some people have said, well, if you declare on this team, they're not going to let you back because the way Cal recruits, there won't be any spots available. But he's already said he's going to use up more of his scholarships to get more depth. They got to go get a big man to replace Adu. I think they're doing a Zoom today with one of the top power forwards. The guy weighs about 250 and 6'8", 250. They need a banger inside, another one. So I think everybody has a good feeling about. I mean, the one thing you can say about this guy, he knows how to recruit, and he will continue to do that. Now, the thing is, what is a reasonable expectation? Because a lot of people have them going to the Final Four next year. Your expectation can be whatever you want it to be. But the NCAA is a crapshoot. It is every year. In 95, Nolan took the same basic group of guys that had won a national championship into the NCAA tournament, and they came within a whisker of losing in the round of 64 and the round of 32. Now, they played better after that, but you just don't know what's going to happen. But, we got a year to worry about that.
Well, all right. So I know Cal was selling the idea of being the underdog this year, and they were, but at least in the first couple of games because of the seed and because of the resume. But I think if we were being honest about the athletes on the court, Arkansas had the better athletes. I don't really know if they were Cinderella. You're going to be here every year. Like, so it's the same in Kentucky with Cal. You're going to be in this situation every year. I don't mean as a 10 seed. I mean as a very talented team that will be in the national, that will be in the NCAA tournament, that will have a high seed, I think, moving forward, that will have an incredible amount of talent and is going to have expectations going into the tournament too. Where that's the thing. It's like, so you make Sweet 16 one year, you want to get Elite Eight next year and all of that. It's just, with Cal as the coach, this feels like a floor being a 10 seed and being an underdog and a darling. Like, I don't expect that's the case any longer.
Yeah, so then do you get back into this whole idea that he coaches better the way he did this year, and he's not very good at coaching a team that's a favorite? And I don't. His history, if you go back far enough, is certainly he can do both. I think I've always believed that part of what happened to him over the last 3 or 4 years is just that excess baggage of it always. That Kentucky fan base is like a boat anchor around your leg, and I'm not saying Arkansas's fans are not that way to a certain extent, but it's not as bad. And so I think at least for a year or two, he's going to have less pressure and the job will be more fun. And he sort of indicated when he took this job, it might be a 3 or 4 year job. So I told somebody today the best thing he can do, other than maybe get to a Final Four or win a national championship, the best thing he can do while he's here is get this program in a position to where when he leaves, they can go out and hire another top-level coach, somebody, that everybody wants. And if he can do that, then the whole thing has been really worth it.
Hey, Mike, with this March Madness tournament, all the number one seeds make the Final Four. College basketball, is it in a good spot right now? And who do you got the favorite? Is it still Duke, Florida as your two favorites?
Well, it's interesting because there have been fewer upsets, and a lot of people feel like the portal is the reason for that. I made the point that 7 of the SEC teams made up the Sweet 16. Then you had 4 of the Elite 8. Now you're going to have 2 in the Final Four, and you're guaranteed a team in the national championship game. And this is from what a lot of people say is the best conference in the history of college basketball. So what happens in the championship game? And I mean, the way I look at it, I don't see an SEC team winning at all. I think both Duke and Houston are better than what I'm seeing, out of the SEC right now. Could be wrong, but boy, those two teams are really good. And I think my belief now is that Duke will probably get into the championship game and win it all. I originally picked Florida. I think it may be Ole Miss that gets there, and then I think Ole Miss probably loses to Duke.
There was a couple years ago, it was Wisconsin and Duke that were in the Final Four, and it was just a bloodbath. I mean, they were just beating each other up, and then you get to the actual championship game, then it's a little bit of a letdown. I wonder, because I agree with you, Mike, that I think Houston and Duke are clearly the top 2 best teams in the country. But when they beat each other up, and then let's say you have to play Florida, Florida can jump on you in a hurry. They can score with anybody.
Yeah, I mean, under that scenario, that might be the one way it happens. And the SEC is fortunate in that respect, maybe, to let those two teams play each other. Because I think they are the best 2 teams, and then what will end up happening is people will claim, if say Duke wins it all, they'll say, well, that was the real national championship game. But, yeah, that's a possibility if they just beat each other up and the team that emerges is exhausted. But Duke is so good. I don't like those guys. I don't want to see them win, but I'm not blind. I know what I've seen. And again, this has been a very predictable NCAA tournament. There hasn't been a lot of – the only thing I would say is that both Arkansas and Texas Tech were a lot better than people thought, and both of them came really close because, we saw how Texas Tech ended up blowing that game against Florida the way Arkansas blew it against them. Both teams did the same thing, and I think both, under the right circumstances, with a break here and there, could have ended up in the Final Four.
This SEC basketball league right now feels to me like it could be a self-perpetuating thing where you continue to be at this level or maybe even better in the next few years. That's what's happened with baseball. Football's there too. It's a new world now where SEC basketball, this has been the deepest league in terms, even what you guys are saying, where maybe the 2 best teams that are playing are not SEC. Can this self-perpetuate because of the portal, sure, because of the coaches that are there and the money?
Yeah, sure. Now, look, things are going to change, and people are just now waking up to this. With this revenue sharing, you're not going to have as much portal activity. I don't know how much it will drop, but basically teams are operating under a salary cap. There'll still be NIL, but it will be reduced. So I just don't think you'll have the total number of transfers that you've had, and we will go back to developing players more, which I like anyway. But how that will affect the league, I'm not sure. But I think the SEC is just trying to dominate everything. I mean, I start thinking how crazy it is in the men's game in baseball. I mean, all 4 of the teams in the first place needed sweeps to stay there, and you look at the rankings, but then you start talking about softball. Do you realize in softball, the top 5 teams in the country are all out of the SEC? Somebody called me and complained about the women's softball team, said they're only in 8th place. They're 14th in the country, but in 8th place. And the 7 teams in front of them are all ranked ahead of them nationally. That's how tough the league is in softball. It's tough in baseball. We know how good it is in football, and now it's good in basketball. I mean, good grief. This is nuts.
BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for betting on all the madness. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from college basketball to a $200,000 bracket contest, BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every Cinderella story to every hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here.